What is going on, guys? Today I bring you another episode of the Journey to National Master, and this is going to be the start of a new tournament, the National Tournament of Honor. That's roughly the translation. And yeah, this tournament was very exciting and very important for me. It was a close tournament, which I haven't played in a while. Close tournament of 8 players, and yeah, I was actually, as you can see, I'm gonna put something on the screen right there. I was the second seed going into the tournament with 1700 elo, and yeah, I was very excited to try to win because I never actually won a chess tournament. I finished second, third place a few times, but never first. So I was trying to give it my best. So first round, I got paired up against Carlos Tribuzzi, a 1526 rated player. And yeah, this pairing actually got out like probably 1 week before the start of the tournament. So I had like a week to prepare against him. And I actually knew his chess.com account because we played a bullet match randomly. And I remembered his name because he had the flag of Portugal and the chess bro flair. So I kind of remembered him. And yeah, I just saw that he played a lot of e4, and I decided to go for the Caro-Kann because after c6, d4, d5, he goes for the exchange Caro-Kann with takes on d5, bishop d3, and I'm very happy to get these type of positions when I'm playing black. I love the exchange Caro-Kann for black. And yeah, I've actually scored some very important wins in this variation from the black side, so I was very comfortable here. And I had a lot of time to prepare the details of this line. So I went with knight f6, my opponent goes c3, and here I go bishop g4, which is one of the main moves. My opponent goes queen b3, and here I play queen c7 here, trying to stop bishop f4 from my opponent. Here my opponent decided to play bishop g5, and I was actually very happy to see this because now I play the maybe unexpected e6. And it's true, I'm allowing my opponent to double the pawns here. But this would actually be fantastic for black because even though I damaged my structure, I haven't castled kingside. So I can just play rook g8 in the future and attack along the g file. Of course, now the pawn is hanging here, but in the future, I can just use this open file for pressure. But my opponent didn't actually take on f6. He just decided to keep developing his pieces, which is probably the best approach. I go bishop d6, and now like my queen and bishop are controlling the dark squares very well and preparing this battery here to maybe even try to win this pawn. Who knows? Here my opponent played knight f3, developing his last minor piece, and I also did the same with knight c6. My opponent here played h3, I fell back to h5, and then my opponent castled here, and I decided to castle as well. And again, the same thing, I'm not afraid of this exchange because this would be very good for me. I can just play king h8, rook g8, maybe even double on the g file and start an attack. So yeah, these double pawns are actually good. Also, it stops knight e5, it allows me to break in the future with e5. So yeah, it's very nice actually. But yeah, my opponent didn't take on f6. I feel like, okay, he definitely didn't want to take on f6. But yeah, my opponent puts a rook on e1. I go bishop g6, which is a bad move here. I didn't have to play bishop g6. I could just start playing on the queen side, maybe with a6 here. I could also play knight d7 to maybe play f6 e5, although first I need to take care of this. But yeah, I could just play this knight d7 move. But yeah, I decided to go bishop g6, which is very thematic in these positions to trade off the good bishop of white for my like not so good bishop. Here my pawn takes, I take with the h pawn, and my opponent decides to play rook e2, which yeah, it makes sense. Normally in these positions, black wants to play on the queen side with a majority attack, and white wants to checkmate black and start putting pressure on the king side. So, okay, rook e2 makes a lot of sense. I play a6 to start the so-called minority attack, a very well-known plan in the Carlsbad structure, which is this one right here. And my opponent decides to double on the e-file. I play knight d7. Now I want to transfer this knight to a better place. I want to play b5, maybe knight b6, who knows. I still have to decide on that. And yeah, the knight has done his job on f6. Now my opponent also tries to reroute his knight with knight f1. I go b5. My opponent goes bishop h4, and his idea is to also trade off my good bishop for his bad bishop with bishop g3. Here I play knight a5 though. I want to be as quick as possible. Hit the queen with tempo. The queen has to move. Maybe I can then bring a rook to c8, play b4, try to break through on the queen side fast. Here my opponent plays queen c2. I play rook ac8. And now I'm threatening b4. So my opponent plays a3 to stop b4. And now I play knight b7, which the engine really doesn't like. Yeah, I should have played something like knight c4. And yeah, I can just play a5 b4 probably. Also, this knight is better placed here on c4 than on b7. But my idea was similar with knight b7. I wanted to play a5 and b4. And yeah, probably the knight on c4 has better pressure. But at least here, my queen is always putting pressure on c3. But okay, my opponent plays bishop g3 as expected, and I decided to just start throwing my pawns on the queen side, start to put pressure, and I was feeling very, very comfortable here. I had a very nice time advantage as well. I was feeling confident that I could actually create some chances here. So my opponent takes on d6, I take it with the knight, and now my opponent does this very strange move, knight e5. And okay, I just take the knight here, and what is his idea now? Does he take with the pawn or does he take with the rook? He takes with the pawn, and okay, my knight is attacked. I play knight f5, and we reach this position which I don't know what my opponent was thinking and what did he think when he played knight e5, because now this pawn is very weak here on e5. Also, he gave me another pawn break with d4. The knight is very well placed here on f5, and yeah, I feel like I am in control of this position. So I feel like knight e5 didn't accomplish anything for my opponent, and even created some issues for him in the long term, because I have more threats. Okay, my opponent decides to play queen b3. Makes sense, attacking this pawn, also dodging any d4s. And here I had a very nice move which I missed. I played queen c4, which is also decent, but d4 would actually be very, very good here. The point is that if my opponent should take this pawn on b5, and then I take on c3, b takes on c3, and now, you know, rook b8, putting pressure here. Probably another rook comes to c8, and these pawns are very, very weak, and I'm probably gonna end up winning the pawn back here, like rook b3 for example. And yeah, this is very nice for me actually. But okay, I didn't go for that temporary pawn sacrifice. I played queen c4, and this makes a lot of sense. I'm basically saying that if my opponent takes the queen, I'll take with the b pawn and I'll have this permanent target. But queen c4 was actually not good, because I missed the simple knight d2. And yeah, I don't want to take on b3, even though now it's the best move to take on b3. That's the only thing that justifies me playing queen c4. But yeah, I completely missed knight d2, which is a very bad mistake to miss such a simple move, just gaining a tempo on the queen. And here, yeah, I was a bit frustrated. For sure, I admitted my mistake and I went back with queen c5 here. My opponent played king f1, which is actually a bad move. It's a bit of a waste of time here, and I guess my opponent was afraid of knight g3 because he couldn't take the knight because of the pin. But after something like knight g3, my opponent can just play rook e3, and yeah, I mean, worst case scenario, I play knight f5 back and he plays rook e2. I don't think he has any issues here. If he just sits in the position, I don't know, trying to figure out a good move for him, maybe like knight f3. Just knight g3 here looks scary, but what about just rook e3? Yeah, I feel like there's nothing to worry about. I mean, maybe knight e4, and okay, things are starting to look a bit dicey, but still, I feel like white is fine here. But okay, my opponent didn't think it was fine to allow this, so he played king f1, and here I played rook b8, which is not the best move. Again, d4 was a very, very nice shot here. And the point is that if my opponent takes here on d4, I have a fork, and I'm basically winning the game here, forking the queen and the rook. So he couldn't take. If he plays, let's say, knight e4 to try to counterattack my queen, I can just take this pawn. And yeah, there's nothing. There's no like discovery that my opponent can do that hurts me. So I would be just a pawn up. And yeah, after the game, I played rook b8, trying to get b4 through and breaking the queen side. My opponent played knight f3. I went rook fc8. My opponent went g4 here, attacking the knight, which is a bit annoying, but it creates some weaknesses on the king side for him. I drop back to e7. Now my opponent plays king g2. I play queen c4 again. And you might think, but did you miss knight d2 again, which my opponent played? And no, this time actually knight d2 is a mistake, and I realized that, and I punished it with queen f4 actually. And now all of a sudden, I am attacking him. Like, he has a lot of dark square weaknesses. My queen is very well placed on f4, and yeah, his pieces are not really protecting the king, so I'm actually in a very good position here. My opponent was starting to get nervous here, I noticed in his body language. He played rook e3, and here I played knight c6, which is a bad move. Yeah, I should focus on the king side, and yeah, I should have played something like g5 would be good, with the idea of playing knight g6, knight h4. But actually, like, here the engine says that the best move that gives black a almost winning advantage is queen h6, and I don't really understand queen h6, honestly. Like, queen h6 is way too deep. I think it's just way too deep for me. I don't know. I don't even want to look at the lines here, because queen h6, I don't know, maybe to play g5, knight g6, knight f4, check and pressure here. G5 maybe, knight g6, knight f4, g6, king g7, rook h8. I mean, maybe it's something very deep. Yeah, I don't understand queen h6, and I'm not even gonna waste time trying to understand it, honestly. It's just very weird to put the queen on h6 like this, with no immediate threat as well. So, after rook e3 here, I played knight c6. My opponent went queen d1. I went queen a4, and queen a4, I mean, I was very desperate to just trade queens, bro. But here, my opponent, if I just make a move like b4, I was afraid of something like rook f3 here attacking my queen, but the computer says that again, either queen g5 here is good for black, or the simple queen h6 again. But okay, I decided I really want to trade queens here and get a target here on b2 to put pressure. But my opponent was like, no, no. My opponent goes back to b3. And here, I guess if I played queen f4, maybe my opponent would go back to d1. But I didn't want to draw. I wanted to win. So, yeah, I decided to, okay, trade queens and try to get an advantage in this position. I played a4 here, and my opponent makes here a very, very big mistake. He plays knight d4, which is an absolute horrible move. I mean, I'm sorry, like, this is like probably the worst move of the game so far. And yeah, this is really bad because after we trade, I just get this open file for my rooks. And yeah, this just gives me like a weak pawn here to target, a weak pawn here to target. I have the open file. Like, my opponent should just play knight d2, and here it would be very hard for me to create chances because it's not easy to break through and get something concrete. Let's say I just play d4 here. My opponent can take, and here after rook d3, it's not so like, it's not so simple. What is my knight doing here? Like, probably I have to go back to c6, and now he has this open file for his rook. It's tough, man. But yeah, my opponent gave me a present, honestly. He just played knight d4, and after takes, I play rook c4. I'm immediately attacking the pawn on d4, and my opponent has to defend it with rook d1, and I'm attacking this pawn. My opponent plays b3, which is actually a nice move to try to, you know, create some some counterplay. Here I played rook bc8, which is not the best, but it's still fine. My opponent took on a4, I took back, and now my opponent decides to take this open file here on with rook b1. I decide to play g5, which is actually the best move. It's very important to play g5. My idea here with g5 was to stop his pawns from pushing, stop him from pushing the pawns, and also give my king some loot with g6, king g7, and I would never get mated on the back rank. Here my opponent played rook b7, and I had a very good move here, almost a winning move that I missed. I played g6 with the idea of going king g7, but I had a very, very good move here, which was rook c8 to c3, and this gives me like a winning endgame, or very close to winning endgame. And the point here is that my opponent doesn't really have time to go like rook f3 to create pressure on f7. I just trade, and then I win this pawn. Also, my opponent doesn't have rook b3 because the pawn is here. And also, my opponent can't really just play rook a7 to counterattack here on a4 because I have rook takes on e3, and my opponent can't take because the pawn is pinned here. So yeah, this would actually be a fantastic move, which my opponent would have to just accept being a pawn down, probably. Like something like rook g3 is the engine's best choice. Now I take here, the king takes, and just rook here, c3 check, and after f3 I just take this pawn, and I'm up a pawn, and I'm winning. I just have to convert this, which I don't think it would be easy, but yeah, I think I would be able to do it eventually. But okay, I missed this, and I played g6, and now my opponent has rook f3, and now I'm not in time to play rook c3 because it's too fast here on the f7 pawn. So I just decide to play rook c7, we trade, and yeah, we reach this endgame, which is definitely equal, easier to play for me, and I'm a little bit better, but my opponent should be able to ult with correct play. But here my opponent blunders again with h4, and yeah, I was very lucky this game because my opponent just kept making big mistakes one after the other. And this was just, I think, a little bit of panic because my opponent was starting to get low on the clock. And yeah, he just miscalculated some details. I just take the pawn, it's a free pawn. And my idea and my opponent's idea was to play g5 here, but this doesn't really work. You know, it makes sense to stop me from, you know, advancing my pawns. He gains some space. And he wants to play king h3 to take this pawn, or just rook f4 to take this pawn. But I have this fantastic move, rook c2, and now he's paralyzed. If he tries to play king h3 to take the pawn on h4, I have rook d2, and my opponent can't really play rook f4 because I just play rook d3 check, and it's much over here. If he takes here, I just take on a3 and I'm completely winning here. If my opponent let's say he tries rook f4 to take here, I have this beautiful move that I think he missed, h3 check. And now the point is that if my opponent plays king takes on h3, I have rook c3 check, so he can't take the pawn. And if he plays like king h2 here, I have rook c3 again, and I'm taking this pawn. So yeah, I'm completely winning. The rook is also super misplaced here on f4. It is doing nothing. It's doing absolutely nothing. So yeah, I played rook c2, and here my opponent played rook h3, but now I have just rook d2 here. My opponent takes on h4, I play rook d3, and yeah, I'm winning either the d4 pawn or the a3 pawn. And now I was like super confident. I thought, okay, like I can't lose this now, and you know, I can't also draw. I have to win this one. My opponent plays rook h3, I take on d4, he plays rook c3, trying to create some counterplay along the c file. I play rook g4 check, and I win another pawn, and now I'm up 2 pawns. And yeah, this is just a matter of technique at this point. My opponent played f4, I played rook g1, and yeah, he won this pawn here on a4, as you'll see. But yeah, I had a bit of time on the clock still. I had like probably like 13 minutes. He had like 6 minutes, I think. And here I panicked a little bit. I didn't know what was the best technique here to win this, but you know, I decided to play rook c1. He played a4. I put the rook behind the pawn. He gave me a check. I brought my king closer to the center. He gave me a check again. Rook king e8, rook a7. But now this rook is very passive, and it's in front of the pawn. So I just decided to start pushing my own pawn with d4. And now, yeah, I just distract his rook. We trade these pawns, and now I play a very important move, rook f4, to cut this king off the game. And now it's just a matter of you know, patience and winning this pawn, which I will be able to do it by force, and I will show the rest pretty quickly, because yeah, it's not very interesting, this part of the game. I was just converting. Took me a while to convert, actually. We reached like move 96, I believe, but yeah, it's just repeating the same pattern here. Yeah, just cutting his king off, and yeah, we reach this position where there's no stalemate, and I'm gonna just play rook b8 checkmate, rook b1 checkmate. So yeah, this was the first game. Actually, very tough game. I think we both could have played way better, but at the end I did less mistakes than him, and I got the win. But yeah, we actually start the tournament with a win with the black pieces, which is perfect. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'll see you next week. Bye bye.